On highways where modern rigs roar past in gleaming chrome, a few iron veterans still trundle on, defying time, wear, and the odds stacked against them. These are not museum pieces. They are living legends, machines forged in an era when trucks were built to last a lifetime, and drivers were craftsmen of the open road. Each dent, scratch, and patch of rust tells a story of survival, resilience, and sometimes outright scandal. From daring rescues after accidents to clandestine modifications that skirted the law, these semi-trucks carry histories as heavy as the loads they haul. They are reminders that endurance isn't just mechanical, it's human. This is the story of 12 of the oldest semi-trucks ever built that still dominate the asphalt, proving that some giants never truly retire. Birth of the beasts, when freight found its fangs. In the dawn of the 20th century, when America's arteries were still dirt and cobblestone, and horses strained beneath the weight of industry's ambition, a new creature stirred in the smoke. It did not breathe, it roared. It did not gallop, it growled. Forged from riveted steel and rattling bolts, the first semi-trucks were not born in factories of glory, but in garages of desperation, built by men who dreamed of bending the burden of freight to mechanical will. Before the beasts took the road, hauling was hell. Horses and wagons buckled under heavy cargo, steam tractors tore up fragile roads, and railroads ruled with iron monopolies. But the hunger of a nation expanding westward demanded something different. Machines that could carry steel and timber, grain and grit, over land unbound by rails. In 1898, Alexander Winton built what is often called the first semi-truck, a crude hauler designed to deliver his own automobiles. It rattled and groaned, but it worked. And in its wake came imitators who saw destiny in diesel. By the 1910s, companies like Autocar, Mack, and White were forging the first true freight haulers. Steel beasts with chain drives, solid rubber tires, and cabins that shook like thunder in a storm. They were crude and merciless, but they carried the future in their beds. When war arrived in Europe, these primitive rigs found new purpose hauling ammunition and supplies across muddy front lines. The world learned that a machine with no fear of fatigue could change the rhythm of war and peace. The 1920s roared with possibility. Roads improved, engines grew stronger, and truckers, once dismissed as tinkers and daredevils, became pioneers of commerce. Mack's early models, like the AC Bulldog, bulldozed their way into legend, earning reputations for strength so fierce that enemies called them devil dogs. Autocar and Brockway built rigs that refused to die, while White and International began experimenting with heavier frames and longer hauls. Every mile carved a lesson into steel. Weight demanded torque, torque demanded endurance, and endurance demanded faith. But these machines weren't just tools, they were trials by fire. Drivers wrapped in wool coats battled wind through open cabs, gripping shaking wheels as engines screamed through unpaved chaos. They wrestled clutches the size of anvils and braked with shoes that smoked under strain. Every load was a gamble, every mile a victory. Yet, through hardship, a new breed of hero emerged, the trucker. Men who talked to their rigs like brothers, who patched engines with wire and faith, who believed their machines possessed souls forged in steel and sacrifice. By the 1930s, the semi-truck had found its fangs. Pneumatic tires softened the ride. Diesel engines replaced gasoline's volatility with raw, enduring torque. Trailers grew longer, stronger, and smarter. Freight companies formed empires on wheels, linking cities once isolated by distance. The Great Depression tested every industry, but the trucks endured, carrying produce, coal, and hope across a wounded nation. They became symbols of survival, rolling monuments to persistence in the face of ruin. Each manufacturer carved its legend. Mack, with its snarling bulldog emblem, built brutes that hauled everything from bricks to tanks. International Harvester blended farm grit with industrial might. White Motor Company produced elegant yet unyielding haulers that roamed from Chicago to California. And then came Peterbilt and Kenworth, Western upstarts who married endurance with pride, birthing the image of chrome, courage, and freedom that would define American trucking. Still, the beasts of the early age bore scars of their birth. Frames cracked under impossible weight, gears ground like teeth in pain, and cabins rattled so violently drivers joked they could churn butter on the dashboard. Yet, even battered, they refused to yield. Many of these original titans, rebuilt, rewelded, repainted, still prowl backroads and farmyards, defying time with engines that echo the dawn of industry. They are the ancestors of every modern rig thundering across the interstate. Their bolts hold the stories of men who drove by instinct, guided by grit more than gauges. Their survival is not luck, it is legacy. In their roar lives the sound of a nation awakening, steel finding its stride, and freight discovering its fangs. For when the first beasts were born, they did more than move cargo. They moved civilization itself, and though a century has passed, their hearts still beat in the hum of every highway. Chrome and courage, the golden age of the road kings. The mid-century highways gleamed like veins of destiny, and roaring down their asphalt arteries came the road kings, machines of chrome, courage, and unbreakable will. The golden age of trucking, spanning from the 1940s to the 1960s, was not merely an era of machines. It was a brotherhood of men and metal, bound by diesel, dust, and daring. The beasts had evolved. No longer crude haulers clawing through mud, they became icons of strength and symbols of freedom, rolling monuments to the American dream on 16 wheels. After World War II, a nation hungry for growth demanded motion. Factories roared, cities swelled, and the call for transport thundered louder than ever. The railroads, once supreme, couldn't reach every town, every mill, every promise, but trucks could, and they did, guided by drivers who saw the open road not as work, but as calling. Chrome shone brighter, engines grew hungrier, and a new creed was born. The road belongs to those brave enough to chase it. This was the rise of the legends. Peterbilt, Kenworth, Mack, Freightliner, brands that didn't just build trucks, they forged myths. Peterbilt's sleek curves and polished chrome reflected the pride of men who treated their rigs like sacred steeds. Kenworth's bold grills and bulletproof frames turned heads at truck stops from Amarillo to Anchorage. Mack's Bulldog snarled through mountains and mines alike, unflinching and unstoppable. And Freightliner, born from ingenuity, brought lightweight aluminum and innovation to long hauls, reshaping what endurance looked like. Engines thundered with newfound power, Cummins, Detroit diesel, and Caterpillar heartbeats pumping torque through steel veins. Drivers spoke their names with reverence, tuning them like priests tending sacred fires. A well-tuned engine was more than machinery. It was a soul, humming steady against the endless miles. Chrome stacks spat smoke like dragons. Horns howled warnings to the wind. Every rig was a reflection of its master. Custom paint, hand-polished trim, decals proclaiming pride and allegiance. And at the wheel sat the knights of the highway. Truckers who braved sleepless nights, icy passes, and endless solitude with only their machines and their music for company. CB radios crackled with code and camaraderie, turning highways into brotherhoods. "Breaker 1-9, a voice would call, and across miles of darkness came an answer, a lifeline, a laugh, a warning of a speed trap or a storm ahead. In a world growing fast and cold, the road kings found warmth in their tribe of chrome-hearted wanderers. But beauty came with battle. The golden age demanded grit. Long hauls tested every bolt and every bone. Drivers fought breakdowns and blizzards, patched tires under desert suns, and slept beneath their rigs when motels were miles away. Pay was meager, hours brutal, but pride was priceless. Each load delivered was a victory. Every return home, a triumph over time and terrain. The open road became legend in song and story. Country crooners sang of 18 wheels and weary souls, while children press their faces to glass, waving at the giants roaring by. Hollywood caught the fever. Films like Convoy and White Line Fever painted truckers as rebels and heroes, warriors of asphalt who answered to no one but the horizon. Yet beneath the shine and swagger lay reverence for the machine itself. Many of these chrome kings from the 1950s and 60s still live today, faithfully restored, lovingly rebuilt, still carrying freight or parading proudly in shows. Peterbilt 351s, Mack B61s, Kenworth W900s. Old titans with a century of dust in their lungs, still rumbling with purpose. Their endurance is no accident, it's testament. Built with steel thick as conviction, engines tuned for eternity. They were crafted in an age that worshipped durability over disposability. To see one on the road today, a polished hood reflecting the sunset, stacks singing songs of diesel glory, is to glimpse the soul of a bygone era. These are not relics, they are reminders. Reminders that courage is measured not in comfort, but in endurance. That chrome, though it shines, means nothing without the heart of the man behind the wheel. In the Golden Age, every truck was a crown, every driver a king. And though the world has changed, the road still remembers their reign. The echoes of their engines still roll across the plains, whispering their creed. Steel may rust, but courage never fades. Rust and resolve, the ones that outran time. Some machines are born to work, others are born to endure. But the rarest among them, the chosen few, are forged in rust, rebuilt by resolve, and blessed with a kind of immortality no factory could ever design. These are the trucks that outlasted their age, that defied obsolescence and laughed in the face of scrapyards. Decades beyond their blueprints, they still roll, still roar, still carry the spirit of a world that refused to slow down. In the quiet dawn of truck stops and the lonely hum of rural highways, you'll still find them. The survivors of the 1940s, 50s, and early 60s, rumbling beside rigs half their age. Their paint may be faded, their badges worn thin, but their hearts still beat strong. Each mile they conquer is a victory over time, rust, and reason itself. Take the Mack B61, built in the mid-1950s, a beast of bulldog steel and iron guts. Many have been retired to museums or parades, but some still haul gravel, timber, and grain across small-town back roads. Their drivers swear by them, not out of nostalgia but respect. They start in winter cold when newer models choke. Their frames, built from an era of over-engineering, shrug off decades of punishment. They've outlived companies, owners, and even the factories that birthed them. Then there's the Kenworth W900, first rolling out in 1961. A truck so perfectly balanced between strength and soul that many of its early builds still serve today. Some run local loads, others appear at rallies, polished yet still fully functional. Its bold hood and enduring structure have earned it a cult following. Owners pour thousands into restoration, not to preserve a relic, but to keep a legend alive on the road where it belongs. And in the deep American Midwest, a 1950s Peterbilt 351 still climbs hills with the slow confidence of a war veteran. Its once bright chrome is dulled, its steel patched and welded, but it rolls, steady, sure, eternal. The owner, a third-generation hauler, refuses to replace it. It's more honest than anything built today, he says, tightening a bolt on the old Cummins engine. It tells the truth in every sound. What keeps these giants alive isn't just engineering, it's devotion. Mechanics hunt scrapyards for discontinued parts, weld their own brackets, fabricate what no catalog sells. These are not restorations for show, they are acts of faith. When something breaks, it's fixed with grit and ingenuity. When paint peels, it's left as a badge of honor. Perfection is irrelevant. What matters is movement, motion as proof of life. Rust becomes part of the identity. Where others see decay, the old haulers wear their corrosion like armor. Each scar, each patch, each mismatched panel is a record of storms weathered, loads hauled, and roads conquered. They are not museum pieces. They are working ghosts, echoes of an age when steel was honest and machines were made to last a lifetime, not a lease term. Their survival also tells a deeper truth. Longevity is a rebellion. In a world obsessed with upgrades and disposability, these trucks are living protests. They declare that durability still matters, that craftsmanship still counts, that the bond between man and machine can outlive the march of progress. Talk to the men who drive them, and you'll hear the same refrain. Why trade what still works? For them, reliability isn't measured in warranties but in years, in cold starts that never fail, in engines that hum like old friends. These rigs may not have touchscreen dashboards or automated transmissions, but they have something rarer: soul. They've seen the country change. Highways widened, factories closed, rest stops built where fields once stood, yet they remain unyielding, a rolling testament to a time when machines were built to be partners, not products. Every start is a miracle, every haul a salute to the past, and every mile they conquer whispers the same defiant truth. Time may corrode steel, but it cannot corrode spirit. These trucks, rusted, rebuilt, reborn, are not just survivors. They are storytellers, carrying the legacy of hands that forged them and hearts that refuse to let them die. They have outrun time itself, not because they were designed to, but because someone believed they should. Scars of the highway, wrecks, rebuilds, and the price of survival. Every old truck still rolling carries its scars like medals: bent steel, welded frames, mismatched panels. Each mark is a chapter in a story written in diesel and danger. The highway is not kind to those who serve it, and the survivors from the 1940s, 50s, and 60s are proof that endurance is never free. Their survival has come at a cost of metal, money, and men. In dusty garages and roadside yards across America, you'll find the veterans, trucks that once lay mangled in ditches, buried under snowdrifts, or split open by load shifts. Most rigs never make it back from such wrecks, but the chosen few, the ones whose frames refuse to give up, have been resurrected, rebuilt bolt by hands that saw more than a machine. They saw a companion, a legacy too stubborn to let go. Take the 1957 Mack B61, nicknamed Old Ironhide, once flipped on an icy Pennsylvania pass in the winter of '78. Its cab was crushed, its axles twisted, its driver lucky to crawl out alive. Most insurance agents wrote it off, but the owner, a second-generation hauler named Frank Dugan, couldn't bear to watch it rot. Over 2 years, he rebuilt it in a barn, straightening steel with a torch, fabricating new fenders and scavenging parts from junkyards. Today, Ironhide still hauls gravel short-haul runs, its patchwork frame a living map of every scar it earned. Then there's the Peterbilt 351 from Oregon, wrecked 3 times and revived 3 times. In its long life, it's seen rollover accidents, jackknifes on black ice, and a fire that gutted its wiring. Each time, its owner refused to scrap it. Instead, the truck became a collage of eras: a cab from one donor, a hood from another, and a rebuilt Cummins engine roaring like a phoenix. They call it Frankenpete now, a monster stitched from memory and metal. But not all scars come from crashes. Many come from relentless labor. Old semis that spent decades dragging freight across salt-slick highways and mountain passes suffered corrosion, frame fatigue, and mechanical heartbreak. Frames have been sleeved with steel, suspensions welded after cracking under decades of weight, transmissions rebuilt more times than their logbooks can count. Each repair tells a story of struggle, of nights under freezing rain, of hands blackened with grease, of the quiet pride that comes when the engine finally roars again. And the price isn't just paid in labor. Rebuilding these relics often costs more than a modern truck. Replacement parts for a 1950s rig can't be ordered. They must be hunted or made from scratch. Mechanics become blacksmiths, forging brackets, grinding gears, machining bolts to fit tolerances that no longer exist. Some restorers spend years chasing parts across scrapyards and swap meets, investing not for profit, but for love. Yet, for every success story, there are ghosts, trucks that couldn't be saved, buried in weeds behind barns, frames too bent, engines too tired. Many serve as donors, their organs transplanted into their brothers. A door here, a drive shaft there. In the world of old iron, death is never final. Every piece lives on in another survivor. Still, the scars speak. A welded crack across a frame is a testament to a night when a rig nearly split in two. A patch on a hood marks the echo of a collision. The uneven rumble of an ancient diesel is the sound of an engine rebuilt too many times to count. They are imperfect, but in that imperfection lies their truth. Ask their owners why they keep these old warriors alive, and the answer is always the same. It's earned its keep. They don't see the scars as flaws, but as badges of honor. Every dent is a reminder that their truck has lived and refused to die, because survival, in the end, isn't about looking new. It's about resilience, about standing up after the crash, rolling on after the breakdown, roaring again after silence. These trucks are not pretty, they are proud, and when they thunder down the road, patched and pitted, they carry more than freight. They carry the proof that even in an age of disposability, some machines, like some men, were built to endure, no matter the scars. Keepers of the iron, the drivers who refuse to let go. Some trucks live because someone refuses to let them die. Behind every semi that has survived decades of freight, frost, and freeway collisions, there is a driver who treated metal like kin, who spent nights in freezing yards coaxing life from a stubborn engine, who saw rust not as decay, but as character. These are the keepers of the iron, men and women whose loyalty is measured not in paychecks, but in the hum of a diesel that still obeys their hand. In rural Pennsylvania, Mac B 61, number 742 has outlasted 3 generations of owners, each teaching the next how to coax it through a cold start, how to read the shudder of its clutch, how to listen to the rhythm of its valve train. Frank Dugan, the original owner, spent decades restoring it after a jackknife nearly crushed the cab in the winter of 1978. Today, his grandson drives it, a second-generation hauler learning the language of metal by feel, not by manual. The truck isn't just a vehicle, it is an inheritance, a living history of grit and knowledge passed down with grease-stained hands. Across the Midwest, owner-operators have similar stories. A Peterbilt 351 nicknamed Red Phoenix survived a rollover in the Rockies, a brake failure in the deserts of Arizona, and a fire in its engine bay. Each time, its caretaker refused to retire it. Every dent was straightened, every bolt replaced, every engine component meticulously rebuilt. The truck is patched and hybridized, a Frankenstein of eras and parts, yet it remains a testament to the bond between man and machine. The driver sees what others cannot, a heartbeat in steel, a stubbornness that mirrors his own. These keepers are not professional restorers, though many have become skilled beyond measure. They are mechanics, farmers, independent haulers, anyone who understands that a truck is more than metal. It is trust, a partner in survival. They spend weekends hunting for parts in barns, scrapyards, and swap meets, paying prices that often surpass the value of a new rig. Each success is a victory over time, over obsolescence, over the culture that discards the old for the new. The labor is unglamorous. Oil-stained fingers, nights spent under a leaking tarp, engines seized by decades of disuse. These are daily realities. Yet the keepers endure. They learn every groan, every shudder, every irregular pulse. They know when a hydraulic line is about to fail, when a transmission is slipping, when a chassis is beginning to twist. Experience becomes intuition. Intuition becomes instinct. And instinct ensures the survival of machines that might otherwise vanish. Some trucks have chosen their keepers. Old haulers refuse to start for strangers, hum to life only under the hands of those who know their secrets. In North Carolina, a 1950s Ford COE only starts for its caretaker. who has spent years restoring its original carburetor and rigging custom controls to accommodate decades of wear. Mechanics call it superstition. Drivers call it respect. The machine has learned loyalty, or at least a form of recognition that mimics it. These drivers are historians too. Each machine they maintain carries decades of freight, accidents, and journeys. A truck that has carried coal from Appalachia, timber from Oregon, or farm goods across the plains is a mobile archive. The keepers document repairs, patchwork innovations, and engine modifications, preserving a legacy that could easily be forgotten. Through their care, these machines become time capsules of American industry, work ethic, and ingenuity. Yet, for all the loyalty, there is sacrifice. Maintaining a 60 or 70-year-old semi demands money, patience, and relentless dedication. Many keepers live paycheck to paycheck, dedicating time that could be spent on modern, easier-to-maintain trucks. They accept breakdowns in remote areas, long waits for replacement parts, and the judgment of skeptics who see old trucks as impractical. And still, they persist because some bonds between driver and machine are not measured by logic but by respect. The keepers of the iron ensure that legends remain on the road. Through dedication, knowledge, and stubborn loyalty, they give old machines the chance to breathe, to roar, to continue proving that steel, though aged and scarred, can endure. Without these guardians, history would rust quietly in scrapyards, and the heartbeat of America's oldest semi-trucks would fade into silence. The underground fleet, forgotten, illegal, and still running. Not every semi that has survived a century has done so in plain sight. Hidden in industrial backlots, abandoned warehouses, and private farms are machines that the world has largely forgotten. These are the underground fleet, trucks too old for modern regulation, too cumbersome for commercial fleets, or simply considered obsolete by bureaucrats. Yet, in secrecy, and often in defiance of law, they continue to run, hauling loads, crossing state lines, and serving as ghosts of a bygone era. In Texas, a 1947 International KB6 hauls lumber between small towns, skirting regulations that dictate emissions and safety compliance. Its owner, a wiry man named Hank Larson, knows the truck would never pass inspection under modern standards. Instead, he operates it mostly on private land, occasionally venturing onto public roads under the cover of night. To Hank, it's not about legality, it's about survival and reverence. Every mile is a rebellion, every trip a testament to a machine that refuses to die. Across the Rust Belt, hidden fleets of 1950s Mack Coways and Peterbilt 281s continue to carry scrap metal, feed, and gravel to local yards. Some are unofficially licensed, others completely off the books. Drivers learn to navigate around law enforcement, relying on intimate knowledge of rural routes, the kindness of sympathetic mechanics, and sheer cunning. These rigs, patched together from decades of scavenged parts, represent a blend of ingenuity and desperation. Engines roar, brakes squeal, and lights flicker, but they endure, proof that age and regulation cannot entirely quell utility. The underground fleet thrives in areas where necessity outweighs compliance. Small farms, remote quarries, and independent haulers often cannot afford modern trucks. A 1950 Kenworth W900 in Oregon still transports logs through rugged terrain because no newer rig can handle the load on narrow, uneven roads. Inspections are skipped, modifications are improvised, and every repair is a gamble. Yet these trucks perform feats their modern successors might avoid. They are rugged, relentless, and unflinching, qualities that have kept them on the move for decades. Operating these hidden giants is not without danger. Brakes can fail unexpectedly, suspensions may collapse under heavy loads, and engines often overheat. Drivers rely on experience, intuition, and the kind of mechanical skill that comes only from decades of intimate familiarity. Unlike modern trucks with sensors and alerts, these vehicles speak in groans, vibrations, and subtle changes in handling. Misread a sound, and disaster can follow. Yet, for every scare, the truck endures, and the driver's respect deepens. Some of the underground fleet has achieved near-mythical status among enthusiasts. Stories circulate of trucks that survived fires, floods, and theft, only to return to service patched together with ingenuity and sheer stubbornness. A 1952 Ford COE in Pennsylvania was salvaged from a scrapyard, its cab nearly crushed, and rebuilt to haul stone for decades afterward. These tales, whispered among mechanics and drivers, highlight an unbroken lineage of resilience and survival, where legality is secondary to utility and passion. In many ways, these clandestine operations are laboratories of innovation. Drivers improvise solutions that would be impossible in regulated commercial fleets. Hydraulic systems are retrofitted, diesel engines reborn with modern parts, and chassis reinforced with steel scavenged from other trucks. The underground fleet teaches that rules can be bent, but engineering cannot be ignored. Each successful run is proof of skill, daring, and respect for machinery. Yet, the existence of these machines also carries risk: legal, financial, and physical. Authorities occasionally seize them. Insurance can be voided, and mechanical failures can be catastrophic. Still, the underground fleet persists, bound by necessity, nostalgia, and stubborn pride. Its operators form a secret fraternity, sharing tips, parts, and tales, keeping alive machines that otherwise might vanish quietly into scrap. These hidden titans are more than tools. They are symbols of defiance, endurance, and human ingenuity. They show that even outside the spotlight of regulation and mainstream recognition, trucks built decades ago can remain relevant, powerful, and, above all, alive. The underground fleet proves that legends do not always obey the law. Sometimes they thrive in shadows, running against the current of time. The road never ends. Scandals, myths, and machines that won't die. Even among the oldest semi-trucks still on the road, there is more than steel and diesel. There is legend, controversy, and sometimes outright scandal. These machines are entwined with stories that blur fact and folklore, from corporate cover-ups to drivers' daring exploits, creating a tapestry as gritty and unpredictable as the highways they traverse. In the 1940s and 1950s, some early Peterbilts and Mack trucks were rumored to have been sold to companies that misrepresented mileage and engine hours. Fleet buyers discovered trucks far more worn than the paperwork suggested, igniting lawsuits and whispered scandals that haunted boardrooms. Mechanics still recall the trickery: odometers swapped, maintenance logs falsified, a testament to the high stakes of hauling freight in an era when documentation was less regulated and trust was currency. In some cases, entire batches of trucks were recalled quietly, their engines rebuilt in secret to avoid lawsuits and public embarrassment. The rumors of these secret rebuilds grew over decades, forming a shadowy layer to trucking history that few dared document openly. Beyond corporate misdeeds, the myths of the road have taken on lives of their own. Drivers tell tales of trucks that refuse to start for anyone but their chosen caretaker, machines that seem to know who respects them. A 1948 International Harvester still running in the Midwest is said to have a list of favored drivers. Mechanics swear it will stall for strangers, yet roar to life at a familiar touch. Skeptics attribute it to coincidence, careful maintenance, or mechanical quirks. But for the devoted, it is proof that the machine is more than metal. The trucks, like the drivers who love them, have personalities, loyalties, and memories. Some legends involve hair-raising escapes and feats of endurance. Stories abound of rigs that survived head-on collisions, landslides, or near-total engine failure, only to be rebuilt and returned to service. One 1951 Ford COE in the South is reputed to have been submerged during a flood, stripped down to the frame, and resurrected over months of painstaking work. Each scar tells a story. Each dent is a badge of survival. These tales, passed down at truck stops and online forums, blur the line between reality and myth. reinforcing the aura of invincibility surrounding these ancient machines. In the cold, pre-dawn light, some drivers swear they can hear the engines calling their keepers, a supernatural whisper of trust earned over decades. Yet, survival has not been without controversy. Illegal modifications were common, especially among underground fleets of decades past. Engines were overhauled beyond legal specifications, exhaust systems tampered with, and suspension strengthened beyond manufacturer limits to handle heavier loads. Authorities occasionally seized trucks or fined operators, yet many machines simply vanished back onto the road, rebuilt by clandestine mechanics who prioritized utility over regulation. Scandal and defiance became inseparable from the identity of these surviving rigs, giving them a reputation as both marvels of engineering and outlaws of the road. The cultural myths extend into media and fandom. Documentaries, YouTube channels, and collector communities celebrate trucks that defy age, portraying them as heroes of an industrial era long gone. These machines are cast as symbols of perseverance, ingenuity, and rebellion. Their stories inspire new generations of mechanics, hobbyists, and truckers who seek to emulate the audacity of drivers who kept century-old rigs running against all odds. The myths fuel competitions at truck shows and digital archives documenting the lineage of each surviving chassis, engine, and cab. Even more extraordinary are tales of revenge against time. Drivers recount engines that resisted replacement, rigs that returned to service after catastrophic accidents, and trucks that survived ownership changes, natural disasters, and corporate buyouts. One 1949 Mack in California is said to have survived 3 separate rollovers and a partial fire, yet still hauls produce weekly. To the uninitiated, these feats seem impossible. For those who maintain the machine, it is proof that patience, skill, and respect for engineering can bend fate, transforming worn steel into living history. The scandals, myths, and extraordinary survivals are not just stories. They are part of the life force of these trucks. They embody lessons in resilience, caution, and ingenuity. Each machine carries not only freight, but also tales of defiance, cunning, and the human determination to keep legends alive. In every squeak, groan, and roar of an engine that should have died decades ago, there is a reminder. The road never ends, and neither do the stories of these iron beasts.